Hi, everyone. Welcome to Around the Ladder. I'm Erika Steinberg. Most of us grew up thinking that career success was built on hard skills, skills, that technical expertise, credentials, and knowledge that proved that we were good at our jobs. But work is changing. When AI can draft, summarize, analyze, and automate more and more of the technical side of our work, the question becomes what actually differentiates people? And increasingly, the answer seems to be the things that we've always called the soft skills. Things like communication and the ability to navigate difficult conversations and uncertainty. My guest today is Dr. Bushra Khan. Bushra helps leaders and organizations rethink emotional intelligence, not as a workplace buzzword, but as a strategic skill set that affects how people lead, communicate, and also build trust. So today, we're going to talk about why those skills matter more than ever, how AI may reshape what organizations value, and why some of the most important career skills are often the hardest to measure. Bushra, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. It's been such a pleasure getting to know you, and we're finally doing this.
We're finally doing this. Thank you so much for having me. I think this is going to be our second or third conversation. So I'm super excited.
Yes, me too. So let's start with the soft skills. I first heard you, just shout out to the Future Proof podcast. That's where I first heard you, and it really spoke to me. I remember I connected with you on LinkedIn after that and wanted to talk more. But on that podcast, you talked about how soft skills are really strategic skills, especially in the AI era. And that was the first time that I heard somebody put it like that. So when you say that, what specific skills are we talking about?
Yeah. So, and in your introduction, you mentioned it very pointedly that AI can automate, write, analyze. It can do so much of our research. It can be a great brainstorming thought partner. AI can do so much. So what differentiates us is how do we pick up on the nonverbals, like that sticky stuff in a room, which is really hard to measure in terms of metrics, right? We, especially our society, we have everything like KPIs, our bamboo HR, and we have our this metric and that metric, and those are all really important. But those metrics aren't measuring um, how many times did I flip a no to a yes. It's not measuring how did I handle resistance. It's not measuring that there has been an opposition towards a certain change that need to be implemented, and that Erica actually dealt with that change management instead of it being a 6 month, dragging on change management system. Now, Erica, because of her really strong social awareness and networking skills and relationship management skills, Erica was able to flip that opposition instead of 6 months in, let's say, 6 weeks. There's no way of actually measuring that,
Mhm.
but that's what let me rephrase that. There's no way of measuring that yet. And that we need to be trending in that. So what are some skills that we need to focus on is under emotional intelligence. Like there's 12 competencies under Dr. Daniel Goleman's framework, but the four kind of domains that we really need to focus on is self-awareness, relationship management, social emotional regulation, and that kind of organizational awareness. Now, it's all great and dandy, and I think everyone and their mother thinks we are self-aware, and I myself think I'm so super self-aware. But in fact, it's less about how self-aware are you and how do others describe you when it comes to self-awareness. Can Erica, in with evidence, describe Bushra's behaviors where she demonstrates self-awareness? So are you having those hard conversations? Are you asking others, how would you describe me? Right? Would you, in fact, describe me as someone with strong self-awareness, strong social emotional regulation, someone who understands org awareness and social awareness, all of that? And how do you operationalize and how do you make it sticky into each situation?
Yeah. And then why do you think that, to me, these skills have always been very important. And I always hated the term soft skills
I
because
hate that word.
yeah,
I hate it.
and
I
I
hate it.
also, I also hated it because I feel like to some degree it was seen as the domain of women. Women have the soft skills. Well, we're so soft. We can communicate. We can this, we can that, which is a load of crap because I've seen plenty of women who can't, and I've seen plenty of men who can. So I don't like that connotation to begin with. But why do you think that these skills are becoming more valuable now? What's going
Yeah.
on now? Has been going on that this is now, these are coming to light. And I hope that the term strategic skills
Yeah.
really takes off. I will do my
Oh,
part to make
I
them
am
happen.
I am on top of a mountain. I keep saying this. I'm on top of a mountain and I'm screaming from mountaintops. No more soft skills. Stop. It's almost derogatory. No more soft skills. We're calling them strategic skills, right? If you look at the World Economic Forum, you look at the McKinsey reports, you look at the kind of future of work reports. Of the top 10 job ready skills or career progression skills, it's all emotional intelligence, problem solving, resilience, grit. So why are we still calling them soft skills? I would even be brave to say it's derogatory. Now you're asking, why is it even more important today? Well, let me actually flip the question. And uh, I imagine you have social media. I imagine most of us have social media or LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. And when we're flipping through it, how quickly can you tell that something was written by ChatGPT? Our brains, pretty quickly, right? Or how quickly, and like ChatGPT only became very popular in mainstream in April 2024. That's when at the start of 2024. And in less than 2 years, our brains can already detect how quickly something is written by ChatGPT, or how quickly our brains can detect that this is not an actual video, but this is an AI generated video. So our brains are very quick to decipher what's real, what's not. And it boils down to the biggest currency is going to be trust. And the way you build trust is not through AI. And again, please, I am not poo-pooing on AI. I think AI is brilliant.
Fantastic.
I use it all the time. But the number one thing that can make or break sales deals, that make or break uh, difficult conversations, that can make or break the trajectory of, let's say, an organizational success is trust. And you can't build trust through AI. That is a human to human, like that will never, that I am putting it down, that will never change. So it's not that AI is taking over our jobs. It's people who are emotionally intelligent, who know how to use AI. They are going to take over our jobs because they know very well this domain of my work can be, can be led through AI, that we can leverage AI. And this domain of my work, which is, do I know how to talk to people? Do I know how to influence people? Do I know how to resolve? And conflict is not going anywhere. Like conflict's here to stay, right? And we envision conflict as winning and losing. That's how our brains are wired. And that is super problematic because we don't want to come off as a loser. And that's where emotional intelligence comes in. How do you massage a situation where not only do you win, but I also win and we can move forward together?
Yeah. So is this how people will differentiate themselves now? In not only that I can use AI, but here are, I think about, it's been a while since I've been in a job interview, of course. Um, but I think about that typical question of, like, tell me about a time when you overcame adversity. Tell me about a time when you uh, persuaded somebody to change their mind about something.
Yep. Yep.
Those questions, I think, will, if they've left, I imagine will come back to the forefront.
Oh, 1,000,000%. And in those, I love that you're talking about these interview questions where absolutely those questions are still going to be there. And how you answer them is going to change quite a bit, because this is what I would suggest is bring in AI in how you would use it. So for example, AI, what I would like, let's say if someone were to interview and say, how have you dealt with a conflict recently? And I would say that in a, close-ended AI, chat bot, I would describe the situation without using certain identifying information. I would explain it. And then I would say, give me a script, right? And then give me the script. And then I would actually practice it with the AI or in front of a mirror or with a trusted human being. But long gone are the days where you can just send an email and influence someone. Like that, those are still very low hanging, low stake decisions. The high stake decisions, it's becoming more and more in person, more and more, and it's no longer that you have now 3 days to prepare an influential pitch deck. You've got like moments that, hey, we have a client coming in. Can you get this done by 4 p.m. because we got to present to them at 4:05 p.m. Let's go. And while AI can, you know, we have like Canva, and we have all these incredible online tools that can create these pitch decks, but it's still on you to influence others. And you don't know what you're talking about, and you don't know like how to speak with it with cadence and confidence and influence, that it's going to lie flat. And I want to also come back to, because 80%, like I think about a call center, like I was working with this call center and working with their team lead. And they're saying that the turnover rate at a call center, while the turnover rate at a call center was always high, now has become even higher because the calls that would come in, 80% of the calls were low hanging fruits. There were easy wins. People were able to handle, the call center reps were able to answer them, and they would get a hit of dopamine and they would get gratification in their jobs. But now, because AI bots can handle those 80% of those easy questions, complaints, whatever it is. Now they're dealing with those 20% really difficult, shitty situations throughout their entire shift. And they're exhausted. They're like, why am I doing this? Right. So they don't get that gratification, that dopamine, and the burnout is so much higher. And that is true across almost all industries. That is definitely true in the tech industry and the finance industry.
So how else are you seeing people? We were just talking about the change in the pace of work. Used to be, oh, you have a week or 2 weeks to prepare for a pitch. Now it's you have a matter of hours or just moments. And the example that you just gave, which just it exhausts me even thinking about it. I
Yeah.
didn't even I'll have to be sure next time I speak to a human on a help on a helpline
How
that I say
are
thank you
you
very
doing?
much.
Yeah, how are you doing today?
Yes.
How's your mental health? Right.
Yeah.
Because all the low, easy ones where they felt good, that like, oh, okay, my metric just went up. I was able to close a file successfully. The number of files that they're able to close, this is for a call center, has gone down drastically.
Yeah. So how you just mentioned the tech world and finance world, how else are people struggling emotionally with the change just to the pace of work in some of
Yeah.
those types of clients that you work with?
So I compare the introduction of AI with any introduction of any new technology, right? And this is from like the start of humankind, is when the invention of wheel came about. There's always that resistance, whether it's the invention of the wheel or the invention of the introduction of computers or emails, or we no longer have typewriters, but now we're going to like put something on an what was it called, MS DOS.
Yes.
That's what it was called, right? And there's always that resistance to change because it's very scary. And so I teach in the MBA program at the University of Ottawa, and I tell them like the kind of the standard of excellence is no longer here. The standard of excellence has increased drastically, and y'all need to level up. So if you, whether you're anti AI, pro AI, whether you have AI grief or AI joy, wherever you lie on that spectrum, like it's here to stay. And whether you use it or not, that might be a choice that you're able to make right now. I don't know how much longer people who are resisting AI, how much longer they're going to be successfully resisting it. But the standard of excellence has, like, the bar has increased. So whether you use AI or not, whether you use online tools or not, like that bar has increased. So whether you still work 40 hours a week or 80 hours a week, the bar has increased. And there is a lot of exhaustion around it. And I am very pro. see where things are going. So this is my advice to those who are, and this is change management 101. Like, we need leaders to communicate the vision, right? Explain the why. Why are we introducing AI? And making consoling folks that like your jobs are safe, you are still valuable, and getting them to pivot that message around how are still a really important part of the organization, the family, the whatever, the ecosystem. But AI is here to stay. So for those who are resisting it, I don't know how much longer you can successfully resist it.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? I have to remember to introduce you to my friend Alejandra Ramirez. She is a communications genius and she focuses on internal communications. And everything that you were just talking about reminded me of the work that she does. I think, first of all, I think the two of you would get along really well. But
Amazing.
it reminds me of the work that she does because she is always, she said your first audience is internal.
Yep.
Your first audience needs to be internal. So you have to, it feels like it just behooves organizations to harness that emotional intelligence and bring it to their internal world first
Absolutely.
as they bring
Absolutely.
people along. Because, and it also reminded me of a term that I heard at a conference that I was at in April, where somebody was talking about change management and change leadership. They said, you know what? Anybody can do change management. You could say, here's a change, deal with it. That's change management. When you have change leadership, you are leading people through it. You are explaining very clearly how it affects them, why it affects them, how it's going to change their world, what their place is in it, and you lead them through the change so that they can come out the other side and
Yep.
they feel part. And
Absolutely.
it is, yeah. So I feel like what you're talking about, change leadership, what Alejandra works on, I feel it's all part of this same spectrum,
You're bang on.
working in organizations now.
No, you're bang on. And what you're talking about is that inspirational leadership, right? Which is actually one of the competencies of emotional intelligence, Dr. Daniel Goleman's framework. And it's really important that, if we look at like Cotter's 8-step change management kind of process, first one is like communicate the vision, like what's happening, why it's happening, how it's happening, where you kind of land on all of it. And um I say that like you need to communicate it until you think you've communicated too much. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm being annoying. And then communicate it some
Sure.
more,
Yeah.
right? It's not enough just to send out an internal memo or to do a newsletter update or to have like a news blast on your internal website or to have a town hall. Like I just mentioned 4 different things. That's not enough. You need to have it communicated so many times, like 7, 8, 10, 20 times, because the more you speak about it, the more cognitively speaking, the easier it is for us to normalize it. So like it's like exposure therapy, right? So if you have a fear of something and you say, okay, you are no longer going to be afraid of, let's say, heights, and you just like take them to that first time, you're like, I'm out of here, right? Like your prefrontal cortex is shutting down. Your threat center is like your amygdala is like danger, danger, danger. But the more you speak about it and you kind of work your way up to like, okay, we're going to talk about, going up a ladder. We're going to maybe do a roller coaster. Maybe we're going to go to a Six Flag. And you keep talking about it until it becomes the new normal. That right there is understanding where people's fear lies and asking people, hey, what is it that's worrying you? Are you worried about more work? Are you worried about like being stretched, like, not having enough bandwidth? Are you worried about not having a job? And giving them that information over and over again. And I've always had some senior leaders who be like, Bushra, then you need us to be the team psychologist, right? Like, because why isn't it enough just that I'm saying it the one time? I'm like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, you need to know what motivates people. You need to know um, what triggers people, what pulls them back. And if you want everyone to kind of get into formation, I'm quoting Beyonce, if you need people to get into formation, you need to repeat those instructions. You need to repeat the change, the how, the why, the when, all of that until their prefrontal cortex takes that information and they convert it into their hippocampus. Hippocampus is where knowledge is made. When you tell an instruction one time, that's what it is. It's an instruction. It's no longer knowledge. But if you say it a few times while their amygdala is feeling safe, you are now converting that instruction, that kind of low level information. You're getting them to internalize it into knowledge. That's what we need to do.
And everything that, everything that you just described sounds like the steps that people go through, people who like to use visualization as a tool. You keep repeating it over and over again. Your amygdala is calm and you say something, where you want to be as though you're already there and it
That's
becomes
it.
real. Yeah.
Your
So
new normal.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. You can create new pathways. You can really create new pathways in the brain. So
Absolutely.
everything that, as you were talking, I was thinking like, okay, this is how a master class and like, okay, these are ways to build trust in an organization. These are ways to erode trust in an organization. For leaders, these are ways to build trust and uh, to to build that trust, to build your own ability to lead people through change. What kind of other leadership weaknesses do leaders need to be aware of uh, that maybe AI and constant change is exposing them?
Yeah. AI is going to tell you everything you want to hear.
Yes,
And
it's a people pleaser.
it's a people pleaser. It is the eldest daughter of a big family.
Oh, don't even
Not,
get me started on eldest daughter stuff.
no, but like I tease, but it is in fact, um, it will tell you what you want to hear. It will not necessarily tell you what you need to hear unless you prompt it.
Mhm.
And if you don't have that self awareness to prompt it, you're in a really tough spot. So, coming back to trust, who do you have in your corner that you can trust in the era of AI? Who, like, have you heard of this saying, like, you're so out of touch of reality, go touch some grass? Have you heard that? Or like, go touch some grass. And what that means is like you need to step away from this kind of like virtual reality and step outside and see what's real. And do you have those people in your corner?
Mhm.
So whether you're a CEO, whether you are a senior director, whether you're starting off in your career, do you have a trusted person who you can bounce ideas off of and be mindful of who that person is? I tell this to my 10-year-old, I tell this to my university students, I tell this to my senior leaders is surround yourself with people who you aspire to be or who have kind of gone through something similar to you. So you are not like if you aspire to become the next CEO of the organization, it's really important that you have someone in your corner who has gone through that similar career ladder. Having those mentorship conversations. So with AI and so much tech changes and like I imagine in the next 2 to 5 years, how we're using AI is going to be very different than in 5 years. I mean, it's already different compared to 2 years ago. So, do you have someone who can help you touch grass? Or do you have someone who can kind of keep your feet grounded? And are you having those conversations in person with your team lead, with your department head? And the argument here that I would make is that with AI, so much of your job is now automated. So much of your job, analysis, research, optimization is done through AI. So technically, if you're doing it well, you should have a bit more time for those human relationships. So AI is actually really fantastic for those emotionally intelligent leaders because I have AI dealing with my scheduling and my calendar and my inbox and my whatever else. So you should be carving out a couple of hours per week for those in-person conversations, for those one-on-one, because the number of times I hear, oh my God, Bushra, I just can't, I don't have time for my one-on-one. My standing meetings always get canceled. That should no longer be an excuse.
Yeah. I mean, is this why we see some people who are technically excellent, but then they hit a plateau in their professional life? And maybe they're not making that leap. Maybe they're not taking that time or they're not valuing those kinds of conversations and that kind of connection. And
Yep.
so then they get to this point and they stay here and they're
Yeah.
technically excellent.
Which you're seeing?
Um, to say, you know what, in the law firm world, that's the world that I'm in, legal marketing. Yeah, what we're seeing now is that traditionally lawyers would be, you have a successful lawyer, so you do really well in your practice, and then you're promoted and you're made a practice group leader. You have no, so you're supposed to lead a group, but you have no training in how to lead that group. And some of the, I think organizations are finally catching on to that. This has been going on for decades already, that, in leadership training and this kind of training. Before, in between our phone calls, I remember I told you I shared that article with you
Yeah. Yeah.
that a law firm is using AI avatars to help lawyers practice their soft skills, like
Yeah.
difficult conversations. So they're finally coming around to it. I didn't know. I remember I was like, I don't know if I should laugh or cry that they're using AI to teach these human skills. And thank you. You let me see the silver lining of this because you said, no, this is definitely something to be happy about. We don't need to cry about this.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
looking at
Yeah.
this. But yeah, I do see that in many organizations, you're promoted, but into a leadership position, but you might not be a leader. And you might
Yeah.
have no training. You might not be given any training in how to do this, in what you
Yeah.
can lead people. And it's more and more critical than ever before.
I love that you brought up the AI avatar. It's um there's so much information out there. There's so much LinkedIn learning and YouTube and this course and this article and that podcast, and all the information is out there. But if you yourself are not absorbing that information and making a really great, strong effort to practice that, it really doesn't matter. Like, we can have a million AI avatars and we can have a million online courses, and you can have all the initials after your name. You can have an MBA and a master's in this and a PhD in this. But like, at the end of the day, if you are incapable of being self-aware and seeking out feedback and having strong emotional regulation and learning how to build those relationships within an organization to influence others and have difficult conversations, like, all of that is wasted. All of that is
Yeah.
wasted. And it really is like, I mean, we are already trending in that direction, but it's a society of haves and have nots, right? Like, everyone has access to AI. Everyone has access to online learning, right? And which has done such a great thing. That's why I don't think universities, like traditional universities, are not going anywhere, because there's so much online information, but it's so difficult to kind of sift through what is good and what is crap. That's why we still need educators to kind of disseminate that information. And there are people who are really great at like self-directed learning, but I don't think traditional learning is going anywhere.
Well,
I
you need that environment
Yeah.
you need that learning environment because you're not just learning a topic. You're not just learning math or literature or psychology. You're
Or
learning how to
emotional
interact.
intelligence.
Yes.
Exactly. That's it. That's it.
I
So
mean, you're going back to, it's like preschool, I sent my kids to preschool so they could learn how to interact. It was like a pack of puppies and the pack needed to, they needed to learn how you act in a pack.
very and I think what you're saying is, and I would even flip it, is that then that level setting happens, right? So again, everyone has access to these AI avatars or chatbots and whatever. But then, do you know how to use it? Do you know how to use it well? Are you freeing up your time to have those human connections? Because that right there, that human connection part, that's what's going to set you apart. And I, I, I think people are recognizing that. I hope people recognize that even more. But that's why I do what I do, right? I'm working with all these like tech leaders and finance leaders around. There's this pushback on, like, there's too many changes happening. Well, listen, you're in a great point where get on that change bandwagon. Let the changes happen while also focusing on that human connection that is needed.
Yeah. So, one thing out that I also thought of is that in organizations, and at least the organizations I've been part of, training, development, it tends to focus on the individual, sometimes a group of individuals. Are you starting to see more of this, like environment-wide training? Like we don't just have to change and shift the individuals, but we have to change and shift
Yeah.
the whole environment.
Yeah.
Are you seeing that more and more now?
I did, I think, 2 one-on-one executive coachings, and I'm like, "Nope, I'm not gonna do this anymore." I have nothing against coaches. I have an excellent executive coach myself. One-on-one or that individualistic approach is such garbage because it's like saying, "I'm going to, I'm going to teach you how to work out and eat clean and eat healthy. And like, here's how you work out with weights. And this is how you do your cardio." But then you go home and all you see is junk food around. Like your fridge is full of ice cream and junk food. And there's no grocery stores nearby where you can get access to fresh fruits and vegetables. So all that thing that you learned about eating and living a healthy life is goes to waste. That's a very similar idea where, and I see this, and I had this aha moment when I was doing when I teach in the MBA program, where I have these incredible, smart people. And most of them are actually in finance or in IT engineering. They come in, we do these amazing year and a half long program. They do their capstone, and then we'll do like a follow up, like, where are you landing? Like, how's work? They're like, "Yeah, we couldn't implement the capstone project." Why not? What happened? Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of buy-in, right? There was a lot of pushback. And I'm like, damn, you're totally right. So I don't do individual teaching. Oh, no, let me repeat that. I don't do individual coaching in organizations. So when organizations bring me on, I'm like, I will only do it if you give me your entire team or majority of your team. Because for changes to happen, you need to level set. We need to speak the same language. When we talk about like something as simple as I do something called plus delta. Plus, at the end of a meeting, plus is something that went really well. Delta is the Greek sign of change. What is something you would like to change with an offered solution? So it's not a complaining session. You can't be like, "Bushra, I wish there were pink flamingos at the meeting." You have to say, "Bushra, I wish there were pink flamingos. And I actually have a connection at the Bronx Zoo that we can like hire them out for a couple of hours at the year end." Right. So you have to offer a solution. So when I talk plus delta, now as a team, you all know what we're talking about. So it's less goofy to say, "Hey everyone, I actually learned something in one of Bushra's sessions. Can we do something called plus delta?" And rather than everyone having an eye roll, they'll be like, "Yo, let's do a plus delta. Cool. Plus delta changes. Let's do it right now." So everyone is speaking the same language, this using the same framework. And do you find that to be true in your work too? Like, are you going, do you do a lot more individualistic or team based?
Team. Everything is firm based that I do.
Yep.
And I
That's
made a change a few years ago because I had a planning session with a firm, and the people who I had one partner who was very engaged and very, she was bought in. And then the people who she brought to the planning session it was one partner, an associate, a legal assistant, and their office manager. And it was the wrong people in the room when it came time to share what they had learned and what they had decided with the rest of the firm. The other partners didn't buy into it. And it was an uphill battle for that one partner.
what a waste.
And it was, yeah. And I said, since then, I made a change. I said, you know what? From now on, we need 4 to 6 people, and 75% of the people need to be partners. I need buy-in at the top.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not going to spend your money well
Yeah.
on this. So why should
And
I do
then
it?
there's that push, like, and that's why a lot of I know you don't do trainings, but you're doing like org wide changes. And that's why a lot of trainings suck, because I apologize for my language. The reason why they suck is because they'll send like their one or two rising stars to these like boot camps or to these like training sessions, and then they come back and they're not able to implement a lot of the things that they learned in the training session. And it's, "Oh, well, the training failed." Well, first of all, most trainers are not engaging. um I do need to say that.
That's a whole other show.
That's a whole other thing, is that like trainers, professors, bring back the joy in what you're doing. Sorry. I think we get confused. I'm totally digressing. I think we get confused with like professionalism and being like calm and steady, and anything joyful makes
Yeah.
it seem too juvenile. And I'm like, no,
No, no, no.
we're competing with like the attention span. Like we're in a TikTok generation where things need to be like, you need to capture their attention in the first 10 to 30 seconds. And if you don't, everything is downhill. But I digress. Um, but like that, I love that you do. You're like that at least 4 to 6 partners, right? And they all need to have some sort of decision making power. Am I
Yes,
hearing that right? Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. And then and
Yeah.
the other and within law firms, at least with large law firms, the most successful training programs that I've seen have been cohort trainings where my old firm, I remember the last time I was in house, we had a training team come in. They trained our lawyers in groups of partners, groups of, I think, like 6 or 8 partners. And what happened is that that first group went through the training. They only wanted to work together because they'd been through it together and they spoke the same language and they knew what they all brought to the table. And then the next group went through and they wanted to work together and with the other people. So the more groups that went through the training, the more people were working together and they had a common language and they knew the program and they knew what the different roles that you need to play
Yep.
in
That's
doing
it.
the work that they were doing. And it was
Now
hugely successful.
they're tapping into the same language, the same frameworks. They're like, they're probably like their ability to work together and actually execute has probably increased quite a bit. I would
Yeah.
argue. And it's not everyone uses, and when we, and I think you and I are using it the correct way, but for those who are listening, when we say using the same language, we don't mean using the same English language or using the same French language. We mean like using the same inner lingo or the same acronyms, or, oh, okay, this is what you mean. Cool. I know exactly which file you're referring to. Let me just get that information
Yes.
rather it being like a goose chase. Yeah.
Yeah. And the cues also, and the social
Hmm.
cues, the just the
Oh,
visual cues that you see. Yeah.
yeah. And because, and we have a lot of fun in my sessions. We do, because the whole thing is like we need to feel safe one another. So like, for example, we'll do something like I'm sure you must have heard of it, the power pose, Dr. Amy
Yes.
Cuddy's power pose, where you stand in front of a mirror or in front of trusted people, and you do like where you have your chest out, your arms out, and you're kind of taking up space. And what that does is increases your testosterone, reduces cortisol. But when you do it in a group of, let's say, 10, 20 people, believe me, the first 15 to 30 seconds, everyone is laughing and they want to like power and they become small. And I say, nope, come on, everyone. And I go around like, I'll be like, come on, pick it up, pick it up. The first 15 to 30 seconds, they are laughing and feeling goofy. And they're like, oh my God, I look so stupid. And then something happens around the 60 to 70 second mark. Their breathing slows down. And they're like, okay, I know Bushra's not going to let us stop. The 90 second mark, something happens where they're no longer giggling and their like nervous energy becomes like strong. At the 2 minute mark, no one is laughing. And now you walk into a space where like we already laughed at ourselves. We feel safe. And that is such a powerful, like when I tell you, like you can literally see it in real time where your amygdala is saying, like, this is stupid, this is silly. I feel really dumb doing this too. Within 120 seconds, you're like, okay, I got this. Let's do this, baby. Like in real time. And sometimes with their permission, of course, I'll keep my phone recording and I'll just do like a panorama view. And then I'll show it to them like an hour later, be like, do you see how you went from feeling silly and unsafe to let's do this? Like your confidence just boosted up. Um, but yeah, no more individual training sessions.
I love it. I love it. Oh my goodness. Well, I think we've covered everything that I could even think of. Thank you so much. Before we go though, around the ladder is really about navigating careers that don't move in a straight line. That was the reason I wanted to start it years ago. I went from one firm to another and I'd been the head of the marketing department at 2 different firms. And then I went to another firm that was the biggest law firm I'd ever been with. And I was the number 2. And my mother kept saying to me, you're going to leave though and be the number one again. And I was like, no, I really like this. I like where I am now. I like being part of this team. And so I started thinking, like, why do we have to go up a ladder? Can't we just go around the ladder of our own choosing? So, what do you think, given that, what do you think people need to develop internally to navigate uncertainty well in this day and age? What, like, if there's this, skills that people should spend that bit of time that they have to develop their own skills, where to start?
Well, this is going to sound woo and
I love
hippie.
woo-woo. I'm very woo-woo.
Okay, but I know it's going to sound woo-woo, but it's not. Telling yourself, I can do hard things. I have done hard things. And whether you need to remind yourself, so taking a notebook and writing down every single time you have overcome something hard, because we forget.
Mhm.
And when you are going through a challenge at work, or in your family, or with your kids, or with your health, or within your community, reminding yourself, I have done hard things. I'm capable of doing hard things. And this is my track record. So we were talking about KPIs and metrics and, bamboo HR. You need to keep a track record of yourself. And we forget when we have a conflict with our partner at home, or when our kids don't listen to us, or when a colleague of ours said they were going to do something and they didn't, and we feel like, right, like, why does it need to be so hard? Reminding yourself and having a pen to paper, I have done hard things. I am capable of doing hard things. And here's a list of evidence of all the times I've done something hard. Because then what that does to our brain is like, oh, damn, yeah, you're right. Like, we can get through this.
Yeah.
And today it's AI. Tomorrow is going to be something else. Next year is going to be completely something else. But that resilience, that grit is the only thing that matters. So focus on all the times you were resilient, and that's whether you are an 8-year-old child or an 80-year-old grandparent. Like, that is the number one thing, is how do you demonstrate your resilience, and how do you talk about your resilience, right? Do you talk about it in a way like, oh yeah, I had to overcome some traumatic experience, or do you talk it with a triumph? So
Yeah.
that's really important.
I love that. It's not only developing resilience, but also the memory of your resilience, keeping
And
it front and
and
center.
that metacognition, right? Metacognition is, how do you think about your thinking, which is, again, very woo-woo, but that's brilliant. How do you talk about your resilience? How do you recollect? Like, are you, I don't want to say, are you gaslighting yourself, but are you positively having a positive recollection of how you overcame something hard? And if you are having a hard time remembering, write it down. Remind yourself.
Yep. I love it. So, oh my goodness. Thank you so much for being here. Please, before we go, also tell us where we can find you. Like where you are on LinkedIn, your website, how people can find you and connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on Instagram or LinkedIn. It's Leading with BK or Dr. Bushra Khan, or on my website, which is leadingwithbk.com. That's Leading with Bushra Khan, or Leading with Bravery and Kindness, because that's where we need to go as a society.
I agree. I agree. Thank you again. I am absolutely reserving the right to have you back on because I feel like there's so much more that we could talk
Yeah,
about.
let's do this. Yeah, and we need to get together when I'm in New York next.
Yes, absolutely. Please tell me. And
Yes.
everybody, thank you for joining us on this episode of Around the Ladder. If any of this resonated with you, please share it with others who are on their own journeys. And thank you so much. We'll see you again soon.